I'm Morgan Blake. Or at least, that's who I used to be, before my own family decided I was a liability. You know how in those glossy campaign ads, the politician always has that smiling daughter in the background? The perfect accessory. A symbol of decency, innocence, wholesome family values. That was me. I was 17, the youngest child of Senator Charles Blake and his picture-perfect wife, Eleanor. We lived in a sprawling white-columned house just outside Atlanta, where every window gleamed, and nothing messy ever made it past the front door. Except me, apparently. It started with a folder I wasn't supposed to find. I wasn't snooping. I was just looking for printer paper in my dad's office. The folder had a name scribbled on the front, Jenna Roth, a local girl who'd taken her own life 6 months earlier. My dad had spoken at her vigil, comforted her mother in front of cameras. Inside the folder were texts, statements, a ledger. It didn't take long to piece it together. Jenna had threatened to go public with information about how the Blake Foundation was misusing funds. My dad's campaign was funneling money through it. When Jenna refused to stay quiet, they destroyed her credibility. And then, she was gone. And there, on one of the pages, was a line in my mother's handwriting. Contain it. Silence. If necessary. I felt like I was going to throw up. I made the mistake of confronting them. That night at dinner, I waited until the plates were cleared and Andrew had left the room. Then I said it, quietly, because I was still foolish enough to think whispering might protect me. I know about Jenna Roth. I found the files. Silence. Then my mother set down her wine glass. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't deny it. She just looked at my father, and he nodded. I was sent to bed early. No yelling, no threats. Just a kiss on the forehead and a soft, "You're tired, sweetheart. We'll talk tomorrow." But I didn't wake up in my bed. I woke up somewhere else, somewhere cold and unfamiliar. A dimly lit room with no windows, and a thick door that locked from the outside. For a long time, I thought it was a hospital. Maybe they'd committed me. I kept calling out for a nurse, for anyone, but no one came. Then I heard Andrew's voice through the vent one afternoon. He was above me, talking on the phone. "She's safe," he said. "She's detoxing. It's for her own good." That's when I knew. They didn't send me away. They locked me in the basement, and they told the world I was in rehab. The room was furnished like a studio apartment. Finished floors, clean sheets, a small bathroom, a flat screen mounted on the wall with parental locks. It was a cage designed to look like care. Every few days, someone would slide in food. No words, just a tray. The lights never turned off completely. I stopped counting days after a while. On the outside, reporters said I was having a psychotic break. My mom gave an interview where she dabbed fake tears and said, "Our daughter is battling demons right now. We're asking for privacy and prayers." And people believed her. They always did. I wasn't angry at first. I was scared. Scared that maybe they were right. That I was broken. They made me doubt myself. That's the part that still wakes me up some nights. Not the captivity, but the way they reached inside me and rewired how I saw myself. I tried to write letters. I slipped them under the door. I begged the silent staff for help. I wrote on the mirror with my toothpaste. "I am not crazy, I know. What you did." One day the mirror was gone. I screamed once. Just once. So loud my throat bled. Nothing happened. That's when I realized they weren't waiting for me to calm down. They were waiting for me to disappear. Not physically, emotionally, mentally. They wanted to erase me so thoroughly that even I wouldn't believe I existed outside their narrative. And for a while, it worked. Then came Lauren. She was new, young, maybe 20, the only one who looked me in the eye when she dropped off my food. I started leaving little messages on napkins. Just a name, a date, a phrase. One day, she slipped me a note in return. I believe you. And just like that, something came back to life in me. She didn't have a plan. But she gave me something my family never had. Choice. It took 3 weeks. On a Friday night, she left the utility door cracked open during a maintenance shift. I slipped out, heart pounding so loud I thought it would shatter the walls. I didn't take anything, not even shoes. I walked until my feet bled. By sunrise, I was in a bus terminal holding a stranger's phone and calling the only person I thought might help, an old art teacher who'd once told me, "You're too smart for this place." She answered on the second ring. "Ms. Berkeley," I whispered, "I need help." That was the day Morgan Blake ceased to exist. The next day I was Maya Sloan, and the Blake family never heard from me again. But one day, they will. 12 years. That's how long it took to feel like I existed again. I don't use the name Morgan Blake. That girl didn't survive the basement. I go by Maya Sloan now. I legally changed everything. Name, records, location, past. What I couldn't, change was what happened. But I could choose what I did with it. I run a nonprofit based in Denver, Break the Silence, focused on reforming institutional abuse in mental health facilities. We help people who were silenced, forgotten, misdiagnosed, or imprisoned under the banner of care. The irony isn't lost on me. The girl locked in a soundproof basement is now the one invited to testify before Congress. The hearing was scheduled for April 17th. My team had been prepping for months, building a case for stronger oversight, tougher protections, transparency. For once, it felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was shaping something, bigger than me. Then, 3 weeks before the hearing, I got the message. A private number, just 4 words. They know who you are. And one more. Please. It was from Andrew, the brother who watched them lock me away and said nothing. The brother who gave press interviews asking for space during Morgan's difficult journey. My stomach turned. I hadn't heard his voice in over a decade. I hadn't wanted to. I didn't respond. Not at first. But then came the email. This time from a burner account. Attached were screenshots of internal emails, messages between board members of the Blake Family Youth Initiative, a so-called charity run by my parents. They were under investigation for fraud. Again. And someone had connected the dots. They knew Maya Sloan was really Morgan Blake. This wasn't about family. This was about damage control. They didn't want me back. They wanted me quiet. The next day, my assistant James knocked lightly on my office door. He held out a sleek cream envelope, his face unreadable. "It's from a D.C. law firm," he said. "Urgent." Inside was a letter, polite, professional, threatening in the way only lawyers can be. It asked if I'd be willing to clarify past statements and provide a good faith character reference for the Blake family as they navigated a challenging period. My hand shook as I held the page. It wasn't even signed by my parents. Just a name I didn't know. A stranger trying to clean up their mess. 2 days later, I got the voicemail. This time it was my mother. "Morgan. Maya, sweetheart. We're reaching out because we know things were complicated back then. But your father and I were just trying to protect you. We didn't know what else to do." The voice was syrupy, familiar. It wrapped itself around my ribs like barbed wire. "It wasn't as bad as you remember, darling. You were spiraling. We had no choice. We did it out of love." I stared at the phone long after the message ended. They weren't apologizing. They were rewriting history. Again. That night, I sat in the dark, legs tucked under me, scrolling through old photos on a backup drive. I found one, me at 16, wearing a blazer too big for my frame, standing beside my mother at a campaign rally. Her hand was tight on my shoulder. My smile was small, controlled. I remembered the fight we'd had that morning. I'd said I wanted to apply to a state college, not Yale. She'd said, "Don't embarrass us." They never wanted a daughter. They wanted a doll in a speech. The next morning, Break the Silence's inbox started to fill. First it was one email. Then 5, then 20, all anonymous, all with a similar tone. Are you aware your founder was institutionalized for mental instability? Maya Sloan has a history of delusional behavior. She was locked up for her own protection. She's dangerous. Attached were fake records, poorly forged, but enough to plant doubt. Enough to make people ask. Then came the press inquiries. A journalist from a political blog emailed our media line. Subject: Urgent. Questions about your founder's identity. James looked panicked. Do we need to prepare a statement? I felt something cold settle in my stomach. They were trying to erase me again. Not physically this time, but publicly. Professionally. They wanted to make the girl in the basement disappear. Again, and worst of all, it almost worked. I started second-guessing every speech I'd ever given, every interview, every fact. I began waking up in a sweat, convinced the basement lights were still on. Then the last domino fell. A donor pulled out, a big one. Quietly. No explanation. Just a polite, cold email. That night, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for the hearing. I didn't drink it to celebrate. I drank it to stop shaking. My phone buzzed again. Andrew. This time a text. I told them not to do this. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, You stood there while they locked me up. You don't get to be sorry now. He didn't answer. A week later, I got a call from our PR consultant. There's movement online, she said. A thread about your past is trending. Some of it's getting traction. What kind of traction? I asked. A senator's office retweeted it. Of course they'd go that far. That was the moment I knew I couldn't stay silent. They wanted me invisible. I'd make myself undeniable. I didn't respond to their lawyer. I didn't record a statement clearing their name. I didn't quietly walk away like they expected. Instead, I booked a second media slot before the congressional hearing. And I started writing. Not about the nonprofit. Not about legislation. About me. About the girl in the basement and the family that tried to bury her. The night before I testified, I clicked upload. The video was simple, just me, sitting in front of a black backdrop. No music, no edits. Just the truth, steady and unflinching. My name is Maya Sloan, I began. But I was born Morgan Blake. At 17, I was locked in my family's basement for discovering things they didn't want the world to know. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just told the story they worked so hard to erase. I talked about Jenna Roth, about the falsified rehab stay, about the lies, the gaslighting, the silence. I ended it with this. They say I'm unstable. They say I'm bitter. But really, I just survived. And now I'm done being quiet. By morning, it had over 4 million views. I walked into Congress that afternoon to testify, not as a victim, but as someone who refused to disappear. I told them what institutions can do when no one is watching, how mental health treatment can be used as a weapon, and how families like mine depend on public silence to keep their power. The hearing ended with a standing ovation. The next day, my parents filed a defamation lawsuit. Of course they did. They claimed I was lying for fame, that the journal found in the floorboards of the basement had been forged, that the former staff member who'd come forward, Lauren, the one who helped me escape, was manipulated by me. They even called her unstable, too. They always recycled the same playbook. The press had a field day. Senator's daughter accuses family of locking her away. Hero or liar? The Maya Sloan scandal. My nonprofit's inbox exploded. Some donors paused support, afraid of the spotlight, but twice as many came in behind them. People who'd never been heard before, people like me. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. My mother sat in the front row, immaculate as ever, pearls at her neck like armor. My father didn't speak, just stared. Andrew wasn't there. My lawyer read excerpts from my journal. Lauren testified in person. I saw the door lock from the outside, she said. I left the food. I saw the security feed. She wasn't in rehab. She was being held. It was surreal, watching my truth unfold through someone else's voice. When the verdict came, I didn't flinch. Not guilty. No damages. Owed. Claims substantiated. I walked out into a sea of flashing cameras and microphones, and that's when she came toward me. My mother. Eleanor Blake. The woman who once said, "Don't embarrass us." Her voice cracked like porcelain. "Morgan, please, don't destroy us. We're still your family." I looked her in the eye. For the first time, I saw her, not as the sculpted socialite or calculating handler, just a woman standing in the wreckage of her own lies. "You destroyed me," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I'm just telling the truth." She opened her mouth to say something else, but I turned away before she could. I wasn't interested in her version anymore. That night, donations poured in to break the silence faster than we could process them. The public had made their choice. They believed me. I bought a house a few weeks later. Not a mansion, not a penthouse. A small, bright place in the foothills with a sunroom. It's quiet. No one tells me to smile there. There are no locks on the inside doors. I filled the sunroom with plants, ivy, succulents, orchids, things that thrive even after being neglected. I named one of them Jenna. She would have been 29 this year. As the sun set through the windows, I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found Lauren's contact. "Dinner this weekend? My treat. I owe you everything." Her response came instantly. "Only if we do Mexican, and I'm ordering extra queso." I smiled. For the first time in years, I meant it. They tried to erase me. They tried to bury the truth, but I planted it instead, and it bloomed.